from the Timber TV studios, this is Timber Talk. Here is Brady Goldman and Sawyer Regan.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm Brady Goldman.
And I'm Sawyer Regan.
We had excellent finishes in basketball and hockey last week, so let's dive straight in. Girls basketball, after a long week with the opening of the Fieldhouse, had just one game on Friday against Braintree in a big game that could give the Womps revenge for their loss earlier in the month to the Timberwolves. That game was firmly controlled by Walpole, but this one came down to the final possession. After a long, hard-fought game that resulted in many lead changes, Bella Bingham here broke the tie at 42 with a clutch layup which ultimately gave Walpole the win 44-42, securing a season sweep over the previous Bay State Conference champion. In a low-scoring bout, Bella Bingham was the leading scorer for the T-Wolves with 13 points, while Tori Adams notched 11. Even before the game, Walpole moved up one spot into number 4 in the MIAA Power Rankings, which is their highest in quite some time, and are only behind perennial powerhouses Foxborough, Medfield, and Whitman-Hanson for that number 1 spot. That brings us to our feature game at home for the girls team against Milton. Walpole got the better of the Wildcats in their opening game this season, 45-36, but this game feels much different. Currently, Milton is number 23 in Division II and just barely over 500, so all the pressure will be on Walpole to knock them off and secure their undefeated record at home this year. If Walpole wins this, it sets up a showdown next week versus Needham for, in all likelihood, the Herget Division title potentially being up for grabs. With each team having one loss in the division, this game will be a 6:30 start time with Sawyer and I on the call. The Timberwolves will also host Westwood on Monday before hosting the rescheduled game against Weymouth at home Sunday morning, so please come support the girls basketball team as they look to pick up wins number 11, 12, and 13 all this week at home.
Boys basketball, after coming off a shaky week, had to play 2 tough games on Wednesday and Friday. On Wednesday, they traveled to top-ranked Bishop Fian and were not powerful enough to take down the mighty Shamrocks, losing 69-88. Then, sitting at 7-6, Walpole was set to host David Wall, the former girls coach, inside the Fieldhouse on Friday night. Fortunately for Walpole, this game was never that close, as they led by 16 at halftime and eventually beat the Womps 71-52. Walpole got a much-needed win against an inferior opponent on Friday, saving them from a 4-game losing streak. Walpole is still ranked number 26 in the latest power rankings and are going to have to come up with some big wins coming up if they want to secure a postseason qualification. That brings us to a pivotal game Friday night as Walpole will host Natick. Both of these teams are pretty similar and are just trying to stay afloat in the power rankings and qualify for a postseason berth. Natick got the better of this team last year 66-54, so Walpole will have to play hard in order to get a huge victory. The game is also at 6:30, so make sure to come support the team for a massive contest. Walpole will also travel to Milton, who wants revenge after what Ryan McDonald did to them earlier in the season on Tuesday. There are 2 pivotal matchups for Walpole that may ultimately decide if they make the playoffs.
Girls hockey hosted Weymouth at the Caddy on Wednesday. At 4-6-2, Walpole needed a huge victory to give them some momentum after getting shut out by Newton North 7-0 last week. We'll start in the second period with Walpole down 2-0. However, that's when Kate Schneider finds the puck off the rebound to cut into the deficit 2-1. Then a minute later, Caroline Sullivan gets the pass from her teammate and puts it in, tying the game at 2 going into the final period. Then in the third, after close calls both ways, it's Kaylee Walsh who gets past the defense, scoring the game-winning goal for Walpole, ending it with a 3-2 victory over the Wildcats. Walpole got a big victory over Weymouth, but couldn't do the same against Braintree, losing 4-2. Walpole has now lost 3 of its last 4, putting them at 5-7-2. The girls currently rank at number 23 in the latest power rankings. They will host Milton on Wednesday and then travel to Natick Saturday night.
The boys, after a convincing 7-3 win over Belmont, were set to travel to Weymouth to take on the Wildcats on Wednesday. The game was tied in the second period before a quick response by the home team propelled Weymouth to a 3-2 victory over Walpole. That put the Timberwolves at 6-6 with a much anticipated matchup against Braintree at the Caddy on Saturday. The Womps led 1-0 for much of the game, but Danny Morris scored in the third period to force OT. Then, with 50 seconds left, Morris scored again to give Walpole the win 2-1 in OT. Then the very next day, the team played Winchester in a tournament game at the Caddy. The team lost 2-0 and end the week at 7-7. Walpole, for the first time this season, is inside the top 10 at number 9 in the latest placements. Walpole will travel to Milton before hosting Natick on Saturday. The boys' track team had the Bay State Open meet last week, in which we saw some good performances from athletes like Arnold Abor-Mensah, who saw 2 PRs. Looking ahead into the postseason, the Bay State Conference Championship will be at the Reggie Lewis Center on Wednesday, and Walpole will try to compete with top competitor Brookline for the title. This follows Walpole's Herget title, and with the season they have had thus far remaining undefeated, this team is looking to make some noise not only in the Bay State Conference, but also in Division III.
And that's going to do it for us today. I'm Brady Goldman.
And I'm Sawyer Regan.
So long from the Timber TV studios. We'll be back next week to recap more news from the winter season.